So color, we talked a little bit about color, but let's talk a little more. Color, of course, communicates meaning in film and design, everything, right? Here we have two examples of scenes that are blue, and they're actually quite different. In the scene on the left, which is from the movie Moonlight, this young boy is standing on the shore, and it probably is very early. And you can interpret that without seeing the film as he is either they're at peace. It's a very peaceful scene with the pale blues and the darker colors, but it also could signify that he's very lonely, right? He's blue, he's sad. If you look at the scene on the right, that's another one from the Grand Budapest Hotel, which uses lots of colors. It's also blue, but it feels very cold. It's a bluer, and there's snow, and by making that white snow look blue, it increases the coldness of the scene. You'll see color based on color theory, things like complementary and analogous and contrasting colors. Here's a couple examples. The one on the right, left is from Amélie, I believe, and it has a very red and green color combination, which are complementary colors across the color wheel from each other, pretty much. And then another very common set of colors you'll see in film are orange and blue. And in fact, this is the most used color combination that you'll see films being color graded or changed to emphasize different things. Colors can show that something has happened in the film. It can indicate change. And here we have an example from the animated movie Up, where on the left, Carl and Ellie are getting ready for their baby. They're painting the nursery, they've built the crib. But on the right, you can tell from the darker, the sadder, the sort of almost flat colors that something has happened, something is bad, they lost their baby. And this also uses a technique called framing, the one on the right, that helps us focus our attention on a very intense feeling using the door frame. The size, scale, and position of objects or people to other objects or people has a lot of meaning. Things that are bigger in the scene get more attention. They're more powerful. They're the bosses. Things that are in the top half of the image are given more importance. So here you can see in this example, it's a shot from I'm not sure which Star Wars movie, honestly. But obviously it's Darth Vader and Princess Leia, and Darth Vader is looming over her. He's much bigger, even though he's further away. He's also in that upper half of the screen, so you can tell that he is dominating in this scene. Typography is very important as well, obviously for title sequences, which we're going to talk about more later in the session, but also even signage that you might see or fictitious branding. Typography has a lot to do with the meaning that is implied. Again, like graphic design. A symbol or motif are things that you'll see in a lot of movies, particularly suspenseful ones, that help give meaning to the movie. A symbol can be an actual symbol, or it can be something like a color, it could be a sound, it could be an object rather than a symbol. And then a motif is when a symbol reoccurs repetitively to refer to a theme, or it expresses a deeper meaning in the film or the show. Here's a couple of examples of symbols and motifs. On the left is a scene from the original Godfather movie. What's happening in it is Vito Corleone, who is the Godfather, is at the bottom of the scene leaning against a car. He's been trying to buy oranges and from this little fruit cart, and as he does, these men come out of somewhere and start shooting at him. So you see this oranges spilled all over the ground. In the Godfather films, oranges signify death, or at least the possibility of death. He does survive this attack. I'm not sure how. But in a later movie, when he's older, he has a heart attack and dies. And when this happens, he's sitting in a garden with his grandson, and they are peeling oranges. And so when he dies, the orange in his hand, as he falls to the ground, the orange rolls away. So that's a motif because it keeps happening through the film. On the right, we have a image from Schindler's List, which, if you haven't seen it, it's all in black and white except for this one segment, which has this little girl in a red coat walking through this town where people are getting shot like left and right. It's horrible. And what she represents to Schindler, who is a businessman that has a factory that is trying to really get as many of the Jews to work there to save them, even though he's a Nazi. So you're gonna watch a clip from this film, and then another clip right after that from The Sixth Sense, which we just talked about, and then we'll talk about those when we come back. And you can see from the clip that there's a lot of horrible things going on around this little girl as she walks through the town. And she is supposed to represent the innocence of the Jews that were being slaughtered. And of course the red could represent a lot of things, but it could just be very basically the color of the blood that's being spilled.
Mama? No. Dinner is not ready.
In this scene from The Sixth Sense, it's subtle, but you can see that as he turns from the toilet, his breath is you can start to see his breath. Previous to this, I didn't get it in the clip, you can actually see the thermostat turning down with nobody's turning it down. It just turns down by itself. And so that coldness and being able to see the character's breath indicates that there is a dead person nearby. There are lots of other, not lots, but there's a few other motifs that are used throughout the film as well. Again, it's a great film. You should watch it. A couple of other elements that I just wanted to talk about are, one of them is, we talked a little bit about framing when we looked at that one image from the animated movie Up. Framing is when you use objects or structures to focus attention in a particular area of the screen. You can see in the image on the left, which is from Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler, that the window, even though you see the whole window, the dividers between the individual windows act as a frame and draw our attention to the middle. I use this one because it's a delightful little movie. It's a very good Adam Sandler movie. But even more than that, there's so much very creative and entertaining framing that happens in that movie that I highly recommend watching it, just for that reason, let alone that it's just a good movie. The image on the right is from The Master, and a doorway is being used to focus our attention on what looks to be a little bit of a contentious interaction between Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Prior to Phoenix coming into the frame, it was looked like a nice, pleasant conversation between, 4 or 5 people. But as he moved in, other people moved out, and this tension was increased. And because of that doorway, we really are drawn to that interaction. And finally, modality. Modality is just basically what the level of realism in the film is. If it is very realistic, it's said to have a high modality. If it is unrealistic, it has low modality. So this image here is from The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, and obviously it's a fantasy. So it could be called a film with low modality or lower modality. So that's the visual elements I want you to be thinking about when you watch movies and watch television shows: shapes, colors, the size, scale, and position, typography, any symbols or motifs, and then of course framing and modality. And in addition to that, you're also going to be looking at lighting, how the shots are composed, and where the camera needs to be placed, and depth of field, and what is in focus and what is not, and how's the overall exposure. Is it very bright? Is it very dark? We're not really going to talk about those individual things, but I want you to be thinking about all of these as you continue through this course.